Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Affirmation Addict podcast. My name is Pyle, and today we are talking all things forgiveness. Specifically, when a loved one hurts you, how do you forgive in that situation? I feel like I've been watching this for so many people around me. And then I actually recently kind of experienced it, not as dramatic as some of the people in my life, but I feel like I have had so many stories of friends, family members sharing how people they love have been really, really hurting them, acting in a way that's just like not called for. And when someone you love hurts you, what do you do? It can be so hard to forgive. It can be so difficult because one, you can't comprehend why they acted this way in the first place. Two, it's someone you love. So you want to forgive them. You want them back in your life most of the time. And three, it's just like an overwhelming, very like gut wrenching experience. So today's episode, I'm kind of just going to ramble as always, but things I really want to talk about is what forgiveness actually means, things you can do to actually start forgiving, and then how do you kind of navigate your own inner world as you're going through forgiveness. And then on Friday, I will release some affirmations to help you with this. So if you feel like this is exactly what you need right now, make sure you come back on Friday so you can use some of the affirmations I created for you. Okay. All things forgiveness. So, this is such a deep one because as I was watching literally my mom, so one of the people in my life who not I needed to forgive, I mean, I needed to forgive my mom, but not anytime recently. But one of the people I was watching work through getting hurt by a loved one and then needing to forgive was my mom. And it was the most heartbreaking thing because I love that woman. I also understand where she was wrong in some of the situation, but it's like she was also very wronged. She was treated very poorly and the actions weren't called for by this family member. It was no one in my immediate family. It was extended family. And just watching her navigate that. So I'm gonna honestly tell you what I did to help her navigate through it. And then also talk through some of the things that I've done in the past when someone I love has hurt me. Like even if Tom has hurt me, we haven't had an issue like this since we started dating. Very, very beginning stages we did, but when you're hurt by someone you love, it can be relative, right? It can be as small as they lied to you about like where they were because they were trying to protect you and they knew you would get mad. And it wasn't even like a bad where they were. It was like they were out for dinner and instead they said they were at the gym and they were out for dinner with the guys. But whatever, you know what I mean? Like it could have been something very, very like small like that. And my head immediately goes to why did you lie? Just tell me the truth, right? Like it can be hard to forgive because it doesn't make sense why they did what they did in the first place. And we'll talk about that. But it could also be as big as someone betraying you, someone maybe cheating on you, somebody breaking a big promise. It can be how someone treats you or how like when things get hard, how someone treats you and how they navigate a situation or when energy isn't reciprocated, which is kind of what happened with my mom. Like the energy and the love that she gave wasn't fully reciprocated, so that was kind of hard on her. And so the first thing I told my mom was like, "Can you understand where this person is coming from? Are you able to not even forgive, not say it's okay, but are you able to just take your emotion out of the situation, take your pain out of the situation, take your hurt out of the situation. And can you just look at it from a third party angle for just a few minutes? Not to kind of acknowledge it, nothing more, just to say, hey, am I able to even see or understand where they were coming from? And so I walked with her and I was like, okay, give me a list of reasons why you think they might have acted this way and start talking through. And then we started talking through. And one of the biggest realizations that came through, my mom was like, they've always been this way. And I was like, okay, so if you know they've always been this way, does it make it easier to forgive? And does it make you want to shift the way you show up in this situation? Because maybe you've been overcompensating for their lack of action or their lack of love or their lack of showing up. And when we overcompensate, we are like, okay, maybe that'll kind of patch up the relationship now. And then eventually we'll kind of get back to normal. However, most of the time, people act through their lens, their view of the world, through their lens of how they see the world and how they see situations. So it's kind of hard unless that person is very, very dedicated to change and to working on themselves. It's very hard for people to kind of shift out of their patterns also. So if this person has always been like this, then is it that much their fault? Or is it like you were expecting them to act a certain way because you were almost hoping to inspire change through your own doing with only good intentions. But was that change not inspired and you're disappointed in the potential that you saw in this relationship? So you're not necessarily as disappointed by the action, although the action was painful. But the reason you're so disappointed in the action is because of the expectation and the potential that you saw this person acting through. You were like, wow, this relationship could have been so mutual. We could have treated each other with mutual love and respect. And maybe the expectation fell flat. And realistically, that person's always been like this, but you've been kind of hyping them up and building it up more in their head, maybe overcompensating through some of your actions. And that led to this situation where you feel hurt. Now, does this kind of warrant their actions? Absolutely not. So the next thing I told my mom to do is try and forgive. And she was like, I don't want to forgive. And I'm like, valid. However, can you do something to help yourself feel a little bit better? Are you able to give yourself the permission to say, hey, I don't want to make you the enemy, but I want to look within and see how we can make the situation better? So moving forward, my biggest thing with forgiveness is we are not warranting that person's actions. Even if we're understanding, even if we're looking at this situation from a place of compassion, it's not like we're saying, cool, that's okay what you did. I forgive you. It's not for them that you're forgiving. Like you're forgiving for you because think about who's the one hurting in this situation. You're the one hurting. Forgiveness is a form of trying to free yourself. So the next question I asked my mom is in what ways is this teaching you something? Or in what ways have you brought this upon yourself intentionally or unintentionally? And that's where we got to the deep stuff. And she was like, okay, maybe this is something, the reason this is triggering me so much is because I want to feel reciprocated and I want to feel loved and I want to feel like I am not going to get abandoned and I feel abandoned by her, but it's just a pattern that's reoccurring. So it's not necessarily her fault. It's more so I need to deal with my abandonment issues. And so then mom was like, okay, I think I understand the root cause. So then we did some journaling. She told me I told her to write a letter to her inner child about abandonment and just talking to her inner child. And she was like, that was so healing because I was able to learn that these abandonment issues aren't from anybody else. It's just my fear and my kind of lack of trust that I cultivated from a young age. And it's a pattern that's been recurring and this keeps happening. And so, how do I navigate forward is by letting myself know that I'm not going to be abandoned. I have my family. And she was like, the thing is like, I have it so good. I have a great husband. I have two great kids. I have your in laws, AKA my in laws that she's best friends with. She's like, I have everything. But why can I not stop thinking about the hurt and pain that she's caused me? And so that's essentially what my mom was trying to do is learn where is this coming from? Where is this pattern coming from? And even though once again the actions of that person were not warranted and were wrong, like were blatantly not nice and not kind, my mom was able to start to understand and see the situation from a different perspective. And ultimately, all of these things led to her feeling very neutral towards the situation. And then in that neutrality, she was able to start to forgive and say, you know what? I'm not okay with the way you treated me, but I'm also not going to let that build and fester up as anger, sad, or hurt. And that's what really helped. And so that was kind of the process that my mom went through in order to kind of go through her forgiveness journey. And I think some of the stuff that has really helped me along the way is learning that forgiveness isn't saying it's okay. Forgiveness is saying, I release the lingering energy that this situation has caused me because it's not worth it. It's like, how much do we think about or hold a grudge or carry pain from something that happened over a couple years ago? I know I do. I hold grudges towards my middle school bullies, all of that, right? And so it's like, can we forgive? Can we see the situation from a different angle and from compassion and understanding? Can we try to understand? And then can we ask ourselves, what role did I play in this? Intentional, unintentional, a lesson from the universe. Maybe I brought this upon myself. And then how can I work on that? Because we can't control how other people act, but what we can control is ourselves and our interpretation and our journey. So that's what I really want you to kind of focus on as you go through forgiveness. And the other thing you can do once you get to that point of neutrality and you still feel kind of taken advantage of or betrayed, but you're like, okay, I am ready to forgive. I love doing the affirmation, I forgive you. Well, I'm messing up the order, but it's like, "Thank you, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me." And so this is like the Hawaiian ritual of forgiveness. I've talked about this multiple times. I'm pretty sure I talked about it like an episode ago. But this essentially is freeing yourself from the burden, freeing yourself from the energetic connection. Because ultimately, our relationships are all here to teach us stuff. The people in our life are here to give us lessons, give us more insight into ourselves, and give us a little bit more meaning as to why we are here and how can we show up as a better person. So, forgiving doesn't mean you're condoning or saying it's okay. Forgiving is saying I release the anger, the hurt, the sadness you have caused me and I'm willing to move forward. Maybe they're not willing to move forward, but you can. So, forgiveness doesn't mean you're going to patch up and things are going to be back to normal. Forgiveness just means the energy that that situation triggered within you is over. The lingering hurt, the pain, the sadness, the betrayal, those abandonment, all those deep, deep wounds that we're triggering inside of us, those are not going to play that big of a role. So, the last part in forgiveness is I will be honest, forgiveness, and just the whole process of like being hurt by someone you love, trying to understand it, being compassionate, and then working on yourself and still being the quote unquote bigger person and trying to see this from an angle of what role did I play. That can be very mentally taxing because not everybody is willing to kind of see the world that way. Not everyone is willing to put in the work to look at things that way. And it can feel like, well, if I'm putting in all this work to try and forgive you, why did you have to do this in the first place? And we start to kind of compare journeys. And the biggest thing I can say to that is be gentle with yourself as you start the forgiveness journey. Be gentle with yourself. Know that it might be triggering. Know that it might be taxing. There might be a lot of tears. There might be a lot of anger. Let yourself feel that. And when those things come up, don't suppress them. Don't pretend like they're not there. Be with those feelings. And my favorite way to sit with my feelings is through a journal. I have a whole episode on being with your heavy emotions a couple episodes ago. But my favorite way to sit with my emotions, especially when it's like someone really hurt me, is my journal. I can write them a letter. I can just brain dump and list out why the situation hurt me so much. I can satisfy my ego because when you can satisfy your ego internally, not towards that person, not by just yelling at that person, but when you can satisfy your ego internally, then you can start to see the situation from a higher perspective and then a calmer perspective. Because maybe you do want to confront them. And I think confrontation is great, but how can you confront them in a way that's productive and constructive rather than just tearing them down? And very reactive and emotionally charged. How can you do this from like a, I am trying to find a solution because maybe they don't want a solution. And that was a very hard pill for me to swallow is that the way people treat you is a reflection of them, not of you. Even though it feels contradictory because I'm saying that, hey, your energy is creating this, but it doesn't mean anything about you. The only person who creates and defines what means anything about you is you. So you get to choose how the situation adds to your story. You get to choose how you navigate and what role you play in the situation. And that's where it becomes a journey to self rather than a journey externally. It becomes way less about the loved one hurting you and way more about what am I learning and how can I better myself through this. So, those are my thoughts on forgiveness and when someone you love hurts you. And this can apply to romantic relationships. This can apply to like boyfriend, girlfriend, family, parents, siblings, cousins, nieces and nephews. This can apply to anything aunts, uncle, extended family, friends. Like this applies to everybody in that situation where it's like, why are you acting this way? How are you acting this way? And how can I forgive you while not giving any more of my energy away? It's kind of like closing an energy leak, plugging the leak and kind of going from there. So, those are all my thoughts. I hope this was a helpful little episode. And if you have more questions on forgiveness, I have a ton of tools inside of Affirm It on forgiveness, like affirmations and meditation, some very targeted tools if you're looking for that. And otherwise, if you need more help, just DM me as always, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you for being here, and I love you, and I will see you next week. Bye.